So today what we wanted to do is we wanted to give you some basic information about what happens when someone passes away and how you can handle things like real estate and the personal property. So I wanted to start off by talking about what probate is. Someone in the room may have already gone through the probate process with someone that you love. So we wanted to talk about what that means. So probate is just the process by which when someone passes away, assets that are going through the will. So anything with a beneficiary designation, anything with a joint owner doesn't go through probate. Probate is designed to help distribute assets through the last will and testament. So that's just the process by which someone gets appointed as the personal representative or the executor and then has the authority to distribute the assets according to the will. Right now, and we're hoping even after the pandemic wraps up, that we'll be able to continue to do virtual probates. That's been really nice. We can have the client into our office, or even if they want to be at home, and we can have the courthouse ladies. They've been really accommodating and very gracious, and they'll get on their computer, and we're able to actually get the personal representative sworn in through virtual means. So we don't actually have to go up to the courthouse right now. So we're hoping that continues even after this, because it's been really helpful. And it doesn't take long. I think, Tammy, maybe 10 minutes is all the time that we're on with the courthouse. So it's not a long process. So without a will, if there's no beneficiary designation, it goes through intestate means. So that just means that somebody didn't go ahead and plan before, and so Pennsylvania is going to impose their own will, if you will, on this person, and you're stuck with whatever they want or how they want to distribute the assets. So it's really important to have a will. So once the will is admitted into probate, somebody gets sworn in, and then you do things like advertise, file an inheritance tax return if one is needed. So that's kind of the whole process of probate. So it sounds really intimidating, but in reality, it's just the process by which the executor distributes assets, okay? Has anybody been through the probate process as an executor? Do we have anybody? Okay. How would you rate it, Body? Is it really difficult to do? Okay. So it seems kind of overwhelming and scary, but I think once you're actually going through the process, as long as you know what you're doing, you have the right information, you can get through it pretty easily. So now we want to talk about what is the probate estate. So there are a couple of things that are not the probate estate. So anything with a beneficiary designation. So if you have retirement, life insurance, anything like that, we always recommend that you designate a beneficiary, because if you designate a beneficiary, when you pass away, your assets automatically go to the designated beneficiary, and it doesn't have to go through the probate process. So I know there are some attorneys who might feel, well, we want to name the estate, because they might say, well, there's going to be real estate in the estate and we want some money to be able to pay taxes and expenses. And we take a little bit different approach. So our goal is to designate beneficiaries where we're able to do that. The reason we want to do that is because if you don't designate a beneficiary, or if you designate your estate and for whatever reason you pass away and you're in a nursing facility, the Department of Human Services, which is the organization that administers long-term care in Pennsylvania, they will come back and recover against your estate. So to the extent you can designate a beneficiary, it's always really helpful, so that you can make sure it gets done quickly, efficiently, and you don't have that estate recovery lien concern. So we always recommend there be a beneficiary designated. Another way you can avoid probate is if you have a joint owner. So a lot of times with spouses, it's husband and wife, and when one spouse dies, by law, it automatically goes to the surviving spouse. So there may be nothing that needs to be done at that point, okay? That works the same if it's a sibling that's on the account or if it's a child that's on the account. It will automatically pass to that joint owner. And then lastly, you can also do a transfer on death or a pay on death designation for things like investment accounts, or you can also do a trust and transfer the assets to a trust, and that would avoid the probate process, okay? So probate is going to be anything where you don't have a joint ownership, where you don't have a beneficiary designation, or where it's not owned in a trust, and the trust funded prior to death. One thing I will say too about probate that I think a lot of attorneys don't like to talk about is that when probate is involved, usually the attorney's fees are more as well. So in Pennsylvania, there's an estate that they base this on. It's a court case. It's called the Johnson estate, and that actually allows the attorney to charge a percentage based on whether it goes through probate or non-probate. So another reason that you might want to avoid probate is to reduce attorney's fees as well, okay? Notices are a requirement in probate. That just means you have to send notification to the beneficiaries under the will to let them know that they are a designated beneficiary under the will. That would be even if there are no assets that are going to go to that individual. So maybe the estate is insolvent, whether it be there's some credit card debt or somebody's in a nursing home, the individuals still have to receive a notice. Okay, so that's one of the things that you have to do as part of the probate process. You also have to advertise. And a lot of times we get the question, why do you have to advertise? And in Pennsylvania, you have to advertise in a legal journal and in a paper of general circulation for 3 weeks. And you have to do that because 1 year from the date of the first advertisement, creditors are barred from coming against the estate. So that would be why you would advertise, okay? So that's part of the probate process as well. We also send one to the Department of Public Welfare, DHS. That's who administers a long-term care. So if the decedent was over 55, then we send a notice to them, and they have 45 days to get back to us to let us know whether or not that person had some sort of benefit that was paid out for their long-term care, because that will tell us how much we have to pay back to DHS. So we are required to notify them someone passes away. And we have some estates, actually one that Hurley's helped us with. They were fantastic. We had a DHS lead in that case, so the person was in a nursing home when they passed away, and Hurley's came in and helped us actually auction off the real estate. And so what our job was is to act as the intermediary between the caseworker with the Department of Human Services and the executor. And so what we were able to do is, in that case, Misty actually provided us with some comparables about what other real estate in the area was going for, so that we could get that approved by the Department of Human Services and they could sign off on that auction. And the benefit there is the house really wasn't in great shape, so we didn't have to worry about inspections or getting approvals, all of that. We could sell it as is. So that's one instance where it was actually really helpful to have Hurley's involved. They were able to do it smoothly and efficiently. So that's one example. Dates to remember when you're going through the probate process: the Rev 1500, that's the Pennsylvania inheritance tax return. So inheritance tax is something that's due when somebody passes away. It's the tax on whoever's receiving it. So if my parents pass away and they leave it to me, I'm gonna pay inheritance tax. I'll pay a rate of 4.5%. So that return is due 9 months from the date of death. You do get a discount, a 5% discount on the tax that's owed if you prepay the inheritance tax within the first 3 months, okay? Probate versus inheritance tax. A lot of times we have clients who say, well, I didn't have to probate, does inheritance tax still apply? And the answer is yes. If somebody's passed away and assets are transferring to someone as a result of death, the only thing that's exempt is life insurance, death benefit proceeds. Any other asset will be taxed at whatever the rate is based on your relationship to the person who died. So direct lineal descendants is 4.5%, siblings is 12%, and then anybody else, including nieces and nephews, are 15%. And if you're a husband and wife and you're leaving everything to your spouse, but there's a retirement account involved, you still have to file a Pennsylvania inheritance tax return, even if there's no tax that is due. You still are required to file the return. This is our inheritance tax chart. This lists the relationship and the tax rate. So we have, again, charities are exempt or government entities are exempt. Then we have spouses. So even though Pennsylvania actually used to tax the spouse, so right now it's 0%. So technically tax does apply, it's just at 0%. Now hopefully they won't change that. And then anybody who's all along your line, whether it be an ancestor or a descendant, is gonna pay at 4.5%. Siblings at 12%, and then everybody else 15%. So for example, when I'm doing my own estate planning, I have some wonderful nieces and nephews. If I wanted to leave it to them, they'd actually pay 15% tax. Okay. So property that's subject to Pennsylvania inheritance tax, any property except life insurance. Pennsylvania, starting in 2013, did carve out some exceptions or exemptions. So normally these assets would be subject to inheritance tax, but for Pennsylvania legislatures decided special exemptions. So a family farm is one of them, family business is another. So those would actually be exempt. We disclose them, but then say they're not taxable. So life insurance is not subject to tax, but annuities, retirement accounts, real estate, and personal property, which is where I kind of wanted to end it because it segues really nicely into Hurley's presentation. So a lot of times we have clients who ask, yeah, Dr. Good, did you have a question?
Well, I guess I'm confused because I thought you said that anything that had a beneficiary doesn't have to go through probate, it also gets taxed anyway?
It does. So even if you can avoid probate, you're still gonna have to pay the tax on it. So
an IRA or 401, that gets
Yes.
taxed?
Yes.
Period, no matter what?
Period. So you don't have to go through the probate process to get the money to the beneficiary, but it's still gonna be subject to tax.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, Dr. Sanger.
Subject to inheritance tax?
Correct.
Or to your income?
So retirement is actually taxed in two different ways. So there's inheritance tax. So that would be the rate of tax based on the date of death value. So if it's going to children, it'd be 4.5 on whatever the date of death value is. And then as they draw out that retirement, they will pay income tax on the amount they're pulling out as well. Okay. So sometimes when I meet with clients, if they have charities that want to benefit, sometimes we'll say, well, retirement's a great way to deal with charities because then it's not subject to those two taxes. Does that answer your question? Okay. So we'll have personal property, so household goods, cars, things like that people want to distribute. And a lot of times we have issues with somebody going into the house, taking care of that. How do we go about selling it? And so this is where I thought a lot of people have questions about this, and I thought, what better way to address it than to go to the experts? So we're actually gonna have Marge come up here and talk about how they handle personal property as well as real estate when someone passes away. So Marge, I'll turn it over to you. And what we'll do is any questions you're welcome to ask, and we'll make sure to address them as well, okay?